Hey, what is up, guys, and welcome back to Football Discussions. Today, we're coming at you with our post-free agency NFL mock draft. This is, I believe, 13.0. But yeah, a lot has changed since free agency. Team needs have changed. I've made a lot of trades in this draft. The picks have already been flopped, which you will probably see at the top of the screen. But I'll explain those trades. You see me looking off. That's I have my trades and those details, so that's what I'm looking at. But other than that, let's get right into it. Starting off with Joe Burrow going to the Bengals at the number one spot. This is the pick. This isn't going to change. Joe Burrow is going number one overall. I have seen rumors about the Dolphins being antsy to trade up and they want to trade up. And I'm not saying that's not going to happen, but regardless, Joe Burrow is still going to be the number one overall pick, and it will probably be to the Bengals. So I think that's pretty set in stone. And then at two, another set in stone pick, Chase Young to the Redskins. Talented edge rusher out of Ohio State. You could argue he's the best player in this class. Like I said, super talented. So it makes sense that the Redskins will grab a playmaker here at two. At three, the Chargers are going to move up and they're going to get Tua Tagovailoa, their quarterback of the future. They're going to trade with the Lions for a first, a second, and a third next year. They're going to move up three spots with the Lions. Obviously, when you're moving up later in the draft, the picks aren't weighed as much because the talent isn't nearly as good. But when you're moving up from 3 to 6, it's almost like moving up from like 20 to 10. So it's a very similar value that you're going to get there just because the players are so much better in the top 10 than they are throughout the rest of the draft. So I think this is a good trade value for both sides. And obviously, the Chargers are trying to bring crowds to LA, and what better way than to do that than to get one of the most known names in college football, Tua Tagovailoa out of Alabama. He's a playmaker. He has great accuracy. Saw him moving around in that video yesterday. He looked good. He looked like a solid player. And I like this pick a lot for the Chargers. At four, we have the Giants taking their offensive tackle of the future, and it's going to be Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa. I think Wirfs is the best tackle in this class. I think he's super talented, super athletic, great pass blocker, great run blocker, physical, strong. Really has the entire package that you want out of an offensive tackle. So I think it's a solid pick for the Giants. At four, you could argue Simmons. And listen, I know how talented Simmons is, but when it comes down to it, the Giants did a really good job at getting linebackers in free agency, Blake Martinez being one of them. And I think that, yes, you could go linebacker maybe later in the draft, but right now you need to get your most desperate need. And to me, that's tackle for the Giants. At five, obviously the Dolphins will probably want Tua Tagovailoa, but he's off the board in this case. So Justin Herbert is going to have to be the pick. Justin Herbert's a talented player. I think he'll fit in well in Brian Flores' scheme. I like Herbert a lot, has elite arm strength, maybe a little raw when it comes to accuracy, but still is a playmaker, and I like what he brings to the table. At six, the Lions traded away Darius Slay, so they're going to need to replace him. Jeff Okudah is going to be that guy. My third best player in this class, super talented, great ball skills, great in man. He has great length. I love what he brings to the table at the cornerback position. At seven, we're going to have Derek Brown going to the Panthers. Brown's actually my fourth rated player in the class. Super talented at getting to the passer. He can play 3-4 end. He can play nose tackle, and he's really athletic. I like what he brings to the table. For the Panthers, their defensive line needs an upgrade. Their secondary needs an upgrade. Really, their defense is in shambles right now. I do like the way their offense is looking, though, especially with that recent addition of Robbie Anderson. They have speed all over that offense with DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, and now Robbie Anderson. I think that offense is going to fly, and I like what Matt Rule's done so far on the offense. Now they just have to build up the defense, and Derek Brown can be a key piece in that build. At eight, we have another trade. The Browns are going to trade up a first, a second, and a fourth. And the Cardinals do not have a second, so that's a great trade for them. They only move back two spots. They're getting a second. They're also getting a fourth. So they're not going. They now have a second round pick. I think that's important to them. And yes, the Browns do have some team needs. Safety being one of them, tackle being one of them. But getting Conklin in free agency was a huge move, and I love what they did to their offense in free agency. However, they lost two really good linebackers, in my opinion, Schobert and Kirksey. I think both of them had the capability to start in this league, both talented players. And now they have to replace that hole that those two guys left. And I think what better way to do that than get Isaiah Simmons out of Clemson. This dude can really do it all. He can play interior linebacker. He can play safety. He can play nickelback. He can play edge. He's really has the whole package that you want at the linebacker position. He's really just a tool that Greg Williams can use all over the field. And I think Isaiah Simmons is an explosive player. And I think he's just going to fit in really well in that Browns defense. And that's the big move that Cleveland's going to make, hopefully to get them over the hump and start winning games next year at the dog pound. Here at 9, the Jaguars kind of decimated their defensive line in free agency. Or in this offseason, they let a lot of guys go. They traded Calais Campbell. So obviously they're going to have to start rebuilding there. They would love to get their hands on Derek Brown, but the Panthers already nabbed him there. So I think they're going to have to settle for Javon Kinlaw. Talented players out of South Carolina, much like Derek Brown. He's good at getting to the passer. He's a good run stopper. He can really do it all from the interior defensive line, which is what we're seeing teams want more. Ever since that Aaron Donald wave, teams are looking for that athletic interior defensive lineman to not only be a great run stopper, but to get to the quarterback. And I think both Derek Brown and Javon Kinlaw bring that to the table. Here at 10, I think the Cardinals are going to have to go offensive tackle. They got their guy D-Hop in free agency, still blown away by that trade. Check out my quarantine podcast free agency edition. That will be linked in the description, and it should come up in the top right right about now. So where me and my friend Max talk about that whole situation, the D-Hop situation, and the entire free agency situation. But regardless, they got their wide receiver. You could mock CeeDee Lamb to the Cardinals, but now they're going to have to go offensive tackle. And to me, Jedrick Wills is their guy. I think Mekhi Becton's the better player, but I think Wills fits the Cardinals' scheme better. I'm not saying Becton's not athletic because he proved that at the combine, but Wills is more athletic, and these offensive linemen are going to have to move around a lot in the Kingsbury scheme. So I think Wills is a good fit for the Cardinals. At 11, wide receiver is going to be tempting for the Jets because of the fact that they let go of Robbie Anderson, but this is a really deep wide receiver class, and they have to protect the quarterback first and foremost. They didn't really do a great job at fixing up the offensive line in free agency, which I know a lot of Jets fans wanted to do. So they could address wide receiver in the draft and get a guy like CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy here, but instead they're going to have to go Mekhi Becton, beef up their offensive line, talented player, really like what he brings to the table. So back-to-back tackles off the board there. At 12, the Raiders are going to make some waves here. Take the best wide receiver in the class, CeeDee Lamb, another really talented guy, brings a lot to the table. Super athletic, can go up and get the ball. Great run after catch ability. I think he's just a complete wide receiver and is really talented. Here at 13, you could have the 49ers going CJ Henderson, the cornerback out of Florida, because that is a team need. However, I think Jerry Jeudy is a guy that they have been associated with since that DeForest Buckner trade, since they moved up. I've heard Judy's name a lot come up in relation to the 49ers and how bad they want him at 13. And if you think about it, they lose Emmanuel Sanders, so they're going to get another young wide receiver in this core alongside Deebo Samuel, another talented receiver in the core. You now would have Deebo Samuel, Bourne, and Jeudy at the wide receiver position. And then you would also have, of course, George Kittle, one of the most talented tight ends in the NFL, if not the most talented tight end in the NFL. So I think that getting Jerry Jeudy makes this offense dynamic. It's going to make it really easy for Jimmy Garoppolo to find open receivers. And I think it's just too hard to pass up on. All right, so here at 14, we have another trade. The Falcons could rely on the Broncos taking Henry Ruggs at 15, which they probably would in this scenario. But I feel like they're not going to take that risk. It's only 2 spots they have to move up. So they're only trading their first and a third with the Buccaneers to move up 2 spots and get their cornerback of the future. They lose Desmond Trufant. Their secondary is in shambles. I think cornerback is far and away their biggest team need, and CJ Henderson is still on the board. I think they are going to be scared of the Broncos taking Henderson. So they're going to move up, get Henderson for themselves, secure that position, and they're only trading, like I said, a first and a third for that. So I think that's good value for the Buccaneers, and I think it's good value for the Falcons in order to get their cornerback of the future. Henderson's a blanket in coverage. Like I said, a talented player, really can do it all, except for tackle. I think tackling is the one knock that a lot of people have on him. And I feel like in the NFL, cornerbacks tend to get better at tackling. So I always say you can learn tackling, but sometimes you just can't learn how to be that great in coverage. And CJ Henderson is that great in coverage. Hope he's not a repeat of Vernon Hargreaves. I know Florida fans aren't going to want to hear that, and Texans fans know what I'm saying. Buccaneers fans know what I'm saying with that. I think Hargreaves is a talented player, just not what they thought he was, or he didn't pan out what they thought he was going to be. So I think getting Henderson here is important for the Falcons. At 15, this one's easy. Broncos are going to beef up their wide receiver core, get Henry Ruggs a third out of Alabama. Another really talented player, a really good speed burner. And this would make the Denver Broncos not good, or their offense not good, but it would make their offense elite. Yes, elite. This would make it one of the most dynamic offenses in the NFL. You have young quarterback Drew Lock, and really it all relies on his play, but I do believe he can live up to the potential and be a starter in this league. And then he'll have Courtland Sutton, who proved to be a bona fide stud on the outside. Then you have Henry Ruggs running routes as well, really can take the top off of defenses, also go underneath, draw linebacker attention, draw safety attention to get Courtland Sutton in one-on-one, or if Courtland Sutton's drawing the safety, then Henry Ruggs will be one-on-one situations. Then you also have Noah Fant going over the top of the defense. You have two dynamic running backs in Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon. I really like this pick for the Broncos. I think it completes their offense. Then they can address the offensive line later in the draft, and it would be a really cool sight to see for the Broncos to get such an explosive offense. Here at 16, we're going to have our first running back off the board. I thought about going maybe Andrew Thomas, but to me, when you bring in Tom Brady, you got to surround him with a great supporting cast. They already have that at wide receiver with Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, OJ Howard. Now you have to get that at running back. I'm a big fan of Ronald Jones. I think he's talented, but he's not as good as DeAndre Swift. Swift is a really good player. To me, Jonathan Taylor is the best running back in this class. I love Jonathan Taylor since he was a freshman at Wisconsin. But it seems like a lot of the experts and a lot of NFL scouts are leaning towards DeAndre Swift. And when it comes down to it, I'm mocking the draft the way GMs would take these players. And obviously, GMs would take DeAndre Swift, it seems like, over Jonathan Taylor. Regardless, like I said, you have to bring in talent to surround Brady. I think it's a smart pick for the Buccaneers at 16. At 17, the Cowboys have a couple of options here. You could go cornerback, you could go safety, you could go edge. Their top three needs, as you can see right there. But to me, let's actually see who I had them drafting here. I'm going to go Christian Fulton, cornerback out of LSU. I don't think Fulton is worth a top 20 pick. I think he's, later first round, but he still had one of the highest Pro Football Focus cornerback ratings last year and the year before. I think he brings a lot to the table. He has great length and he has good ball skills. I think he just sometimes gets torched off the go. So I think that's something that he needs to work on. But other than that, I think Fulton could be a good replacement for Byron Jones in Dallas. At 18, we have the Miami Dolphins picking here. And here they're going to take their offensive tackle of the future and go Andrew Thomas out of Georgia. I think Thomas is a super talented player, great run blocking tackle. Pass blocking is something he needs to work on, but I think he can get better at that with time and practice and coaching. So I think it's a solid player to bring in for the Dolphins organization. Here at 19, cornerback is a need, but the Raiders let Carlo Joseph walk in free agency, so now they're going to bring in the best safety in this class to go alongside Jonathan Abrams, and that's going to be Xavier McKinney out of Alabama. Love what Xavier brings to the table. He can play box, he can play nickel, and he can play safety as well. He's just super talented, super dynamic, and I think it's a good fit for Oakland. Here at 20, back-to-back safeties. Now it's Grant Delpit's turn to go off the board. Cornerback, yeah, but I'll bring you over to the cornerback position. There's not a lot of first-round talent available. I would say actually Jalen Johnson is personally my next guy, but I would say maybe AJ Terrell, maybe Jeff Gladney could go. But when you're really talking about best player available / team needs, a solid mix of both of those, I think Grant Delpit's going to be a solid fit for the Jaguars here at 20. At 21, I'm going to have Denzel Mims off the board here from Baylor. Super talented, super athletic, and a good receiver. I think he fits the scheme of the Philadelphia Eagles a little more than Justin Jefferson. He's a little bigger than Justin Jefferson, a little more physical. He is 6'3", 206. I know Justin Jefferson's 6'3", but I think he's in like the 190s. Yeah, 192. So I think his build is Denzel Mims' build is a little bigger, and I think that's how they like him in Philadelphia, that bigger type receiver. So I think that's just the deciding factor. But don't worry, because Justin Jefferson is going to replace Trayvon Diggs by being the next wide receiver, or sorry, not Trayvon Diggs, Stefon Diggs by being the next receiver off the board. Vikings are going to patch that need right back up, and I think it's a solid fit at 22. At 23, the Patriots are going to get their quarterback of the future, and that's going to be Jordan Love Yes, I know that they like Jared Stidham, but I don't think he's a starting caliber quarterback. You bring in Brian Hoyer. Is he really going to be your starter? I think the Patriots are going to be hard pressed to not take Love here at 23. At 24, we have another trade here. The Bengals are trading the 33rd overall pick, so that's the first pick in the second round to the Saints, a fifth and a second next year as well. So that's all to the Saints, and that's to pair up these LSU teammates, different sides of the ball, but still LSU teammates. First they get Joe Burrow, now they get Caleb on Chason, edge out of LSU. One of my favorite players in this class. He's athletic off the edge, probably the most athletic player in this class off the edge. Not his technique and his skill level may not be as good as a guy like AJ Epineza or Chase Young, but what he brings to the table, like I said, is athleticism. He also can drop back in coverage from that edge spot, which I think is rare. He's not necessarily like great at it, but he's definitely good at it, and it's something that, like I said, is rare nowadays. So I think getting such a dynamic, athletic player for the Bengals is an important thing. Here at 25, the Vikings are going to go cornerback, and it's going to be Jeff Gladney out of TCU. One of the better players or cornerbacks in this class. Is actually a very deep cornerback class. I say up until a guy like Bryce Hall, this class is very talented, and then it starts to drop off. I really like Amik Robertson from Louisiana Tech too, and Darnay Holmes from UCLA. I think both those guys are good. I think they're better than Troy Pride as well. So even up to Amik Robinson, I think you could say that it's a very talented cornerback class. So I think Jeff Gladney is one of the best of the bunch, and I think replacing Xavier Jones or Rhodes is an important thing for the Vikings. Here at 26, yes, you bring in Jordan Howard, but I think you have to get another starting running back that can, really be the workhorse for your team. But I don't think Jordan Howard is that guy. I think it's going to be Jonathan Taylor out of Wisconsin. 2 running backs already in the first round. You see the Buccaneers pull the trigger. Now people are going to start getting nervous. Those teams that are needy of running backs. Yes, running back isn't maybe the most pressing position, and people call it the most replaceable position in football, which is probably true. But I still like Taylor here at 26. At 27, this one's easy. The Seahawks are going to get their guy, AJ Epineza, out of Seattle. Out of Iowa. A really good run stopper off the edge. Also can get to the quarterback. Generates a lot of pressure, and I'm a big fan of his as well. At 28, the Baltimore Ravens are going to get Patrick Queen out of LSU. Super talented player, more of a pass coverage linebacker than anything else. But I think what he brings to the table is unique. Yes, he's undersized, but like I said, athletic, good in pass coverage, also hard hitter. So I think it's a solid pick for the Ravens. At 29, the Titans are going to go interior defensive lineman. They got rid of Jarrell Casey over the offseason, over the free agency period. So now they're going to bring in a replacement for him, and that's going to be Neville Gallimore out of Oklahoma. I'm a big fan of Gallimore's. He is more of a run stopper than anything else. He has tremendous size. I actually want to see. He is 6'2" and 304. So a really big dude, but talented nonetheless, and I really like everything that he brings to the table. At 30, we're going to have Laviska Shenault off the board here to the Packers. I think he's a good complementary wide receiver to Davante Adams. I think he brings that to the table, really just takes the pressure off Davante Adams' shoulders finally in Green Bay, and gives Aaron Rodgers another dynamic wide receiver in his offense. Here we have our final trade going down, and it's going to be the Broncos trading back into the first round. They're going to trade up the 46th overall pick, so that's their second round, a third and a fourth to the 49ers. The 49ers have one of the, some of the least amount of draft picks in this class. They don't have a second, and I don't believe they have a fourth either. So now they get a second, they get a fourth, and they also get a third out of this pick, or out of this trade from the Broncos. They already picked Jerry Jeudy, so they have that unlocked. Also, if you look at the cornerbacks, which I think is what the 49ers would take here, there's really not a lot of first-round talents available anyway. So now you can save that until later in the second round where you have a pick now. And the Broncos are going to get linebacker Kenneth Murray out of Oklahoma here. I really like this pick for the Broncos. Alexander Johnson proved to be a beast last year, but now they're going to get a guy to play alongside him. They do run a 3-4. They have Jarrell Casey on the interior defensive line. They have Draymond Jones on the interior defensive line. Now their linebacker core is complete with Chubb on the outside, Vaughn on the outside, then Johnson and Murray on the inside. I think that's a really solid front seven for the Broncos. So I think it's a good pick and a good trade up for Denver. Here at 32, you could go cornerback, but to me, running back, you've already seen Taylor and Swift off the board, so now the Chiefs are going to get a little antsy. They want a running back. They want a guy who can be the workhorse, and that's J.K. Dobbins. Obviously, Damian Williams is great out of the backfield when it comes to the passing game. I still don't think he's a dynamic running back, and I think J.K. Dobbins is. So 3 running backs in the first round, a little weird, but I think it's still plausible. Here at 33, I think the Saints would have loved Kenneth Murray to fall to them, but obviously the Broncos made that trade up. So now they're going to go T. Higgins, still a super good player, still a player that can complement Michael Thomas's game. So I like that fit in New Orleans. Here at 34, you could go Eason, but I think he might be available at 44. We'll see how that plays out. So to me, it's going to be back-to-back wide receivers here. And the next best one is, in my opinion, Michael Pittman out of USC. I really like what Pittman brings to the table. He was up for best wide receiver of the year last year alongside Jamar Chase, who won it. And I want to say Judy, but don't quote me on that. Regardless, still a super talented player. I think he's underrated in this class, and I think he's definitely worth a second-round pick. Here at 35, we saw the Lions address a lot of team needs in free agency. And then they also bring in cornerback in the first round of this draft. So now they could either go interior defensive lineman. I think Ross Blacklock is a solid pick. Or they could go edge. If we look at the edge position, Yetur Gross-Matos is still here. But to me, it's going to be Ross Blacklock. I think he is a super talented player. Really good athleticism at his size, 6'4", 305. So I think it's a good fit for the Lions. At 36, like I said, the Giants already got Blake Martinez, and I think edge is a more pressing need than linebacker. So they're going to take Yetur Gross-Matos, who falls to them in the second round. A big steal there for the Giants. I think it's a solid fit for them. Here at 37, the Lions are already picking again. I think they would have loved Yetur Gross-Matos to fall to them so they could get both Blacklock and Yetur Gross-Matos, which they probably could have if they picked Yetur Gross-Matos first. So hindsight's 2020, but I probably should have done that if I was in the Giants or in the Lions front office. But to me, Zach Bond is, even more athletic than Yetur Gross-Matos. I think Yetur Gross-Matos is just a little more technically sound than Zach Bond, but I still like what Zach Bond brings to the table off the edge. Another guy that can play interior linebacker as well as edge, so I think you can really switch him in and out of those roles. Definitely more of an edge rusher, but I think it's a solid fit for the Lions. Here at 38, it's got to be corner if you're the Panthers. You got rid of Bradbury. You got to bring in someone else, and I think while I do like Noah I'm not going to say that last name. We've decided to call him Noah I think A.J. Terrell is going to be the fit for the Panthers at 38. At 39, the Dolphins have already gotten quarterback, offensive tackle, and running back in the first round. Now I think they're going to go interior offensive line, solidify that offensive line, and to me, I think it's going to be Cesar Ruiz out of Michigan, another player that I'm a big fan of. Here at 40, we saw the Texans make the trade for David Johnson, so now running back isn't such a pressing need. So usually I'd probably mock Clyde Edwards-Helaire here, but now it's definitely edge or interior defensive lineman. Terrell Lewis is TDN's next best guy. To me, it's Curtis Weaver. And then the interior defensive lineman, there's still Justin Matabuke left. So it's a toss-up. But to me, I think I'm going to go Curtis Weaver out of Boise State. I'm going to keep vouching for this guy because he has consistently the best pass rushing rating out of any edge rusher in this class. Freshman year, 11 sacks. And then his sophomore year, he kind of had a slump, quote unquote, still had 9 sacks, and I think like 14 or 16 tackles for loss. And then last year, I think he had like 14 sacks. So he's constantly getting pressure. He's constantly in the backfield. And if you're a Texans fan, you better like this pick because it's a good one. Here at 41, the Cardinals already got offensive tackle in the first round. Now they could go linebacker or edge. Malik Harrison's available. And then at edge, you would have Terrell Lewis. And I think Terrell Lewis is going to be the pick for the Lions. Here at 42, the Jaguars already addressed interior defensive line with Javon Kinlaw and safety with Grant Delpit in the first round. Now they're going to go corner, and it's going to be Noah I out of Auburn. Dude is short, but is physical. He's 5'11", 200 pounds, but a really physical cornerback, and he's fast for his size. So I think that it's going to be a solid pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars. In no way is he Jalen Ramsey, but or AJ Bouye, but can maybe do a little justice for that Jags secondary. Here at 43, I would go interior offensive line if I was the Bears, and I would take Lloyd Cushenberry out of LSU, player that I'm a big fan of. I think he is talented, and I think that it's a good fit for the Bears. At 44, quarterback is going to be the way for the Colts. Yes, bring in Phillip Rivers, but it's only a one-year deal. You got to start thinking about the future as well, and Jacob Eason is that guy, a talented player out of Washington, great size, great arm strength, and he has good mobility in the pocket as well. At 45, it's got to be offensive tackle. To me, it's Josh Jones. That would be a steal. I actually kind of forgot about him. He kind of fell way down into the first round, or way down into the middle of the second round. But the Buccaneers are going to get a solid pick here and really shore up their offensive line. At 46, it's going to be cornerback for the San Francisco 49ers. And to me, it's going to be Jaylon Johnson out of Utah. I think he is athletic. I think he's super talented, great length, great ball skills, 6 foot and 190 pounds. I think he ran a slow 40, but I don't think that really represents what he brings to the field. I think he's better than that, and I think it will be a good fit in San Fran. At 47, I think the Falcons are going to have to go interior defensive lineman here. It's going to be Justin Madubuike. I know I botched that, out of Texas A&M. Another talented player, another guy that I'm a big fan of, and I think that he's more of a run stopper than anything, but also can get to the quarterback. Here at 48, it's got to be wide receiver, in my opinion. Yes, Rieger's available, Hamler's available, talented players. I'm going to go with Rieger here. I'm actually personally not a fan of Rieger, but and I think this would kind of just be a Robbie Anderson replacement. But I still think he's talented enough to be picked in the second round. Here at 49, Hargreaves is no longer a part of the Steelers. I think interior defensive line is a need for them. They also got Eric Ebron, so you won't see them going tight end. Marlon Davidson's here. Raekwon Davis is here. 2 SEC guys, 2 guys that I'm high on right now. But I think Marlon Davidson just has a slight edge on Raekwon Davis. Here at 50, the Bears could go secondary. But to me, I think, yeah, they got Jimmy Graham, but that's not good enough. You got to go tight end. You got to go younger. Cole Kmet out of Notre Dame is my number 1 tight end, and I think he's super talented. I love what he brings to the table for the Bears. At 51, edge, I think, would be the most pressing need for the Cowboys. But safety is also a good need, or is also a need, and safety by far is the best player still available. And to me, Antoine Winfield is one of those guys, a guy that I'm a big fan of, and I think he's talented enough to be picked even in the late first round, in my opinion. I think he's super talented, great in zone, also can play nickel if you want him to, and he's also a hard hitter, breaks up passes. We saw him be a ball hawk last year. I think he got like 7 or 8 interceptions, so I really like what Winfield brings to the table. At 52, the Rams could go linebacker, they could go edge, and to me, they're going to go edge, and it's going to be Josh Uche out of Michigan. Really, to me, he's the last really talented edge rusher in this class. He's 6'1", 241, super good. It reminds me of a guy like Caleb Von Chason, whereas his athleticism is really unique off the edge, and he didn't get the most statistical, or didn't have like the best stats, but I think that he's still one of the better players in this class. At 53, the Eagles are on the clock. They're going to be going linebacker. And to me, I don't know why Troy Dye is so low on this draft board, but he's high on my draft board. He's a consistent tackler. He's good in coverage, really can do it all. 6'4", 225. I think he was one of the best players at Oregon, consistently one of the best players at Oregon. I don't know why he's fallen down so many people's draft boards. Still worth a second round pick, in my opinion. and the Eagles really need to address that linebacker spot. So now the Bills traded for Stephon Diggs. They made their move. They got Josh Allen a weapon, so wide receiver isn't a need here. But they do need a player playing alongside Tre'Davious White, and to me, that's going to be Trayvon Diggs from Alabama, a talented corner, maybe a little slow, but still good a man. I had him in the first round for a while in all my mock drafts. He's kind of fallen down boards, but I still think he's talented, and I still think he can make a splash in this league. Here at 55, I think it's. I do like Jonah Jackson, and there's still really good offensive tackles on the board. You have Lucas Niang, you have Austin Jackson, so there's still a lot of talent at that offensive tackle position. I don't think Ezra Cleveland is worth a second round pick. I think there's a lot of hype around his name that's undeserved. However, the Ravens have really good offensive tackles, so to me, it's going to be wide receiver. Yes, you could go KJ Hamler, but I feel like that's basically Marquise Brown. And DPJ is not necessarily a physical receiver, but he's talented enough to go up and fight for the football, make plays. So I think that's a solid fit for the Ravens. Here at 56, the Dolphins already got Kyle Van Noy and Shaq Lawson. I think they got Emmanuel Ugba as well in the free agency period, so I don't think it's necessary for them to go edge. However, I do think it's necessary for them to go safety, and Kyle Duggar out of Lenoir-Rye is my next safety on my board. A talented player, 6'1", 217, freak athlete, really explosive, and I think he's underrated as heck, and I think it's going to be a solid pick for the Dolphins to wrap up their first two rounds. At 57, we could see the Texans go interior defensive line. We could see them go interior offensive line. But to me, offensive tackle, they're going to be going best player available. And that's going to be Lucas Niang out of TCU. And then back-to-back tackles here, Austin Jackson out of USC is going to be picked at the end of the second round. Yes, I know that's a little late. I really kind of lost track of all the offensive tackles. And now we're going to have three straight offensive linemen with Jonah Jackson going to the Seahawks, who need an interior offensive line. The Ravens, I think, could use edge here. I think they could go tight end. They lost Hayden Hurst. And, we all know how much the Ravens love having three good tight ends. So while it may seem good for them to spend a second-round pick on one, I don't think it is necessary just yet. I think they can wait, especially since all the tight ends are still available. So I think they're going to go interior. This is actually tough. I'll actually have them go Julian Okwara. Like I said, I think it's a drop off at the edge rusher position for talent, but again, I think he's not a bad player. Maybe a third, borderline late second player, but I think Okwara is just best fit for team needs in Baltimore. Here at 61, the Titans still need edge someone to go alongside Harold Landry. But they already got interior defensive linemen. I think they can address edge a little later. They're going to go corner to wrap up this round. And Cam Dantzler, higher than 67 on my draft board. Personally, I think he is a higher second-round pick. So I think that is a solid fit for the Titans. A tight end is going to go off the board here, and it's going to be Bryson Hopkins out of Purdue, probably one of the more athletic tight ends in this class, 6'4", 241, a vertical player, a solid route runner, and I'm a big fan of his. Here at 63, it's going to be another cornerback off the board, and it's going to be Bryce Hall, another guy that's lower on this board, way higher on my board. Definitely think the injury held him back last year, and that's why he's tumbled down boards, but he was a first-round pick in my mind. I think as long as he can come back and recover from that injury and doesn't really lose a step, I think he'll still make us a really solid impact on the field for the Chiefs. Here to wrap up the end of the second round, I'm going to go Prince Tega Winoho out of Auburn. I think he's a solid way to end this pick or end this draft, and Seattle needs an offensive tackle. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's edition of my NFL mock draft. Hope you enjoyed it, and stay safe, stay healthy. Obviously, all of us are in quarantine, and I'm bored as hell, so I'm going to try to make as many mock drafts, as many draft videos as possible. Let me know if you guys want to see just team drafts, like the Broncos draft, the Redskins draft, just specific teams and how they would do in a seven round mock draft. So I'll scroll through these picks one more time just in case you want to get a look at them. But take it easy. Peace.